All right, I'm ready for another really good episode. This one is all around a story. This one's about I didn't get the promotion. What gives? So we have Amanda. Amanda is so smart. She's so talented. She's reliable. And yet, Amanda is stuck. She is so stuck. 2 years in, she's still in the same role that she was hired into. She watches her coworkers, some with less experience than her, some who even started after her, get tapped for promotions, stretch assignments, and leadership opportunities. Meanwhile, guess what Amanda's doing? She's been told to be patient. Just keep doing what you're doing. And she's starting to wonder if the problem is actually her. And that's where our story begins today. Welcome to the Lead with Levity podcast, where we explore the moments in your career that challenge you, define you, and if you're not careful, hold you back. Today's story is about a quiet career trap that kind of keeps people who are really hard workers, like Amanda, stuck, feeling overlooked, waiting for recognition that really may never come. At its core, this isn't just a story about Amanda, it's a story about us. What happens when showing up isn't enough? When you follow all the right advice, but somehow you're still not in the room where the decisions are made? And most importantly, how do you break free before it's too late? I hope you're enjoying these stories. Go ahead and subscribe to show your support for the show. And if you like this episode, do me a favor and share it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, or really wherever you live online these days, so more people can get this message. All right, let's take a look at Amanda's story and what we can all learn about how to get ahead at work. Amanda had done everything right, or at least that's what she thought. She worked late when needed, always delivered on time, and made sure her team never missed a deadline. She wasn't flashy, but she was consistent, dependable, a steady hand. So when she sat down for her second year career conversation with her manager, she expected to hear something about her future. Instead, she heard this: "You're doing great, Amanda. Really solid work. But when we go into these talent meetings, it's really a numbers game. There are so many, so many people. There are so many people going for these positions, and there are only so many promotions to go around. And there's a lot of competition. The people who move up have done a lot for the company. They have big wins that we can point to and say, this is why they deserve it. You've been killing it in your role. You really have. But there just haven't been as many opportunities to showcase that. Maybe we can work on that next year." Next year. Amanda left the meeting feeling like she'd been put in a tiny little box in the corner. She'd been showing up. She'd been working hard, and she had done everything they asked her to do. Why can't they see that? All the long hours, the projects that wouldn't have made it across the finish line without her, the time she stepped up, filled in the gaps, solved problems before they even knew that they were problem. She took some time and she thought back to when she first got that job. She was so excited. She was new and people noticed her. There were all of these welcome emails and invites for coffee dates and Slack messages that said, "So glad you're here. Let me know if you need anything." And the advice that she got, people told her, just take it all in for the first few months. Just keep your head down and do good work. If you do a great job, they'll notice. Don't rock the boat too early. Amanda took all of this advice to heart. She kept her head down and she waited to be noticed. She took on what no one else wanted to do, thinking it would show she was a team player. She stayed quiet in meetings. She was kind of afraid of looking inexperienced. She skipped networking because she thought her work would speak for itself and that she needed to spend more time doing that work. And that's why 2 years later, she sat in that career conversation, hearing, "You're doing great, but we just don't have enough big wins to put you up for promotion. People meant well. Her coworkers meant well. Her family meant well. Even her manager meant well. But none of them gave her the advice she actually needed to move up. She had let her first 90 days slip away without setting the tone, without making it crystal clear what she brought to the table, without giving them something to fight for in those talent meetings. And now she was invisible. So what did people tell her to do? Maybe you should go back to school. Maybe this company just isn't right for you. Maybe you should report your boss. Sounds like he's not advocating for you. All well-meaning advice, all missing the point. Amanda didn't need another degree. She didn't need to start over somewhere new. She needed to learn how to make people take notice of the value she was already bringing. But she didn't realize that yet. That weekend, Amanda went to her nephew's birthday party at one of those trampoline parks where kids launch themselves into foam pits and parents pretend they're having fun. Between the cake and the chaos, she told her family about her decision. I think I'm going to go back to school, get another degree. Maybe that's what I need to finally break through. Her mom smiled with pride. Her sister grinned. Oh, Big's going back to school, getting all the degrees. I can't keep up. Her uncle told her it was a smart move. Because really, in their world, more degrees meant more opportunities. They didn't know any better. And neither did Katrina. Who's Katrina, you ask? Katrina was Amanda's cousin, a stay-at-home mom for the last 8 years. She wasn't in the corporate world anymore, but she had always admired Amanda's ambition. She didn't know what it was like to fight for a promotion in a competitive office, but she knew what struggle looked like. And Amanda looked tired. Later that night, Katrina found herself replaying the conversation with her husband. He had missed the party. He was so swamped with work. But as soon as she mentioned Amanda's decision to go back to school, he raised an eyebrow. That's a mistake. Katrina frowned. Wait, why? Because school isn't going to fix the real problem. She tilted her head, confused. I've seen this before. I see new people come in running on good job energy. Their managers love them, but they don't stand out. They don't show that they're ready for the next level. They just look like another bee in the hive. If she thinks a degree is going to change things, she's in for a rude awakening. She'll come back in 2 years, older, more gray hairs, more debt, and still no clue how to get people to notice her. That piece of paper that she's going after isn't going to change a thing. Katrina sat with that. And for the first time, she wondered, should she tell Amanda? Would Amanda even listen? Well, that's a question for another day. But the question that I want you to ask yourself today is, am I setting future me up for growth or frustration? Do you see a little bit of Amanda in yourself? And if you do, I want you to be crystal clear about something. This is not your fault. If no one ever told you how to maximize your first 90 days, if you were given outdated advice like just work hard and they'll notice you, if you've been following the rules, checking the boxes, still wondering why you're not making the progress you want, it's not because you're not good enough. It's because the system isn't set up to teach you these things. And I say that as someone who believes in education, who believes in the value of hard work, but also as someone who knows that those things alone won't get you where you want to go. Here's what I mean by that. 1, school doesn't teach you how to make the most of your honeymoon period at work. Education is designed to make you an expert in a subject, but it doesn't necessarily show you how to apply what you've learned to real-world settings. That's why so many people leave school with a degree, but no real strategy for how to navigate their careers. 2, Most jobs don't exactly roll out the red carpet when you start. They just throw you in and expect you to figure it out. They make sure that you know the tech. Yes, they send you to orientation and they give you the tools that you need. They tell you about the policies, what you're going to be working on day to day. But when it comes to actually navigating your role, in a lot of cases, that part's on you. And if you're stepping into a leadership role, good luck, because most companies don't have a special playbook for that. They're going to point you to some online course that they didn't watch that isn't specific to your situation. And they'll pat themselves on the back for finding it for you and call it a day. So if you don't take control of your first 90 days, no one else is going to do it for you. Number 3, you may not have been told that hard work alone doesn't lead to success. Actually, visibility does. You've been taught that keeping your head down and grinding is the key to moving up. But in reality, the people who move up aren't just the ones working the hardest. They're the ones making sure that the right people see their impact and see what they're doing. They take time to get to know decision makers, and they figured out how to make it really clear to everyone what they bring to the table. There's a lot of career advice out there that'll leave you feeling burnt out, feeling invisible, and wondering why you're spinning your wheels. And the good news that I want to share with you today is that you don't have to start over. You don't necessarily need another degree. You don't need to quit and hope for something better to come along. What you do need is to understand the 3 pillars that create momentum when you first join a company and when you start to lock into your new role. Here's what they are. The first one is career clarity. You need to know what you want, where you're headed, and how to position yourself for that. The second one is courage. The courage to speak up and take initiative and make moves before you feel ready. The third one, and I'm going to harp on this one a little bit, is connection. I just stumbled on this song that's been playing on repeat on my playlist by Jacob Banks. It's called A Tree Never Waters Itself. Think about yourself as a tree. Once planted, a tree is going to spread its root system deep and wide to get the nutrients that it needs and to form this stable, solid foundation from which to grow, right? Those big trees that we see, they do so well because their roots hold them down. I'm not talking about the palm trees, y'all. I'm talking the other trees. So the roots, they hold them down so that they can grow big and tall and provide nice big shade and canopy for everything below them. I could give a whole presentation about what we can learn from trees, but I want you to think about those roots as the connections, the network that the tree is forming underground. The network allows the tree to tap into water, minerals, and the food that it needs to continue to thrive where it's at. Without that, the growth, it can be stunted. I have a dead lemon tree in a pot on my patio in my backyard. And it makes me really sad because I really wanted a lemon tree for so long. And when I finally got it, I was so excited. I wanted that tree to grow so bad. I watered it every day at first, but then life crept in. I had to travel for work. A lot of stuff was going on. And I forgot to check in on it, right? And one day turned into 2 days. And before you know it, I had this sickly, sad-looking tree on my hands that I couldn't save. And it was unfortunate because it had to rely on me and my family to go out there and water it. It didn't have the benefit of the full ecosystem in the ground. When you land a job, one of your top priorities should be building strategic relationships early so that you can tap into the full ecosystem that can support you as you get deeper and deeper into your role. And if you want to take control of your onboarding window or even recover if you've already let that window close, it's time to start playing by a different set of rules. So stick with me because I'm excited to share this with you. One of the most overlooked but really powerful career strategies is actually documentation. Yeah, I said it, documentation. Took me a long time to learn this, so I am sharing this with you now. Most people dread performance reviews and career conversations, especially managers, because they only think about them when they're happening. Then it becomes this big, intimidating moment where they suddenly have to remember a whole year's worth of work. It's kind of like it's time to do your taxes and you haven't documented anything all year, and now you've got to go back and try and figure out, wait a second, what did I spend my money on again? It's kind of like that. But you're going to make this easy. Imagine your wins log. It's something that is there for you to highlight all of your best moments. If you don't capture them, they start to fade away. One of the most overlooked but really powerful career strategies is actually documentation. Yeah, I said it, documentation. It took me a long time to get on board with this and to even know that this is something that is a thing, but it is a thing. And I'm about to share this secret with you if you haven't been doing this. Most people dread performance reviews and career conversations because they really only think about them when they're happening or right before they're about to happen. And then it's this big, intimidating moment with this deadline looming over you where you start to suddenly have to think about, wait a second, how do I even remember a whole year's worth of work? It's like when you have to do your taxes, and if you're not good about holding on to receipts and documenting everything, and you don't have everything sort of outlined, and you're not looking at your numbers every month, at the end of the year, you've got to figure out, wait a second, what is this transaction? I don't know what I'm spending any of my money on. If you've ever been there, you know that overwhelm, that feeling of overwhelm. But you're going to make this easy. Imagine having a highlight reel of your best moments. If you don't capture them, they fade away. But if you do document them, you walk into that review knowing exactly how much value you bring. And you can do this today. Yes, today, right now. I want you to open up a spreadsheet. I want you to name it something super powerful that you're going to remember and get excited about when you see it. Mine is called Heather Walker Kudos. But you might want to call yours something different, something like My Wins or Level Up or Receipts. Yes, Heather Walker Receipts, especially if you're feeling cheeky. You want your name on that file too, because it makes it easier to find the file later, okay? And a side note, we have a very nice downloadable poster template for this that you can just grab off of the site, and you can print it so that you can have a visual that just surrounds you with evidence of your good days. And it really comes in handy on those days when you start to wonder, why am I here in the first place? And what have I done? I'm not feeling very good right now. And you can grab that at leadwithlevity.com/podcast. Okay. I spend about 10 minutes a week thinking about what worked and what I could celebrate. And I honestly try to do this every single day. But if you're just getting started with this, aim for once a week. Here's what I do. I start by writing down at least 3 things that I accomplished that week. And these don't have to be massive, earth-shattering wins. If I saved time, if I helped someone out, if I solved a problem or made something easier for someone, it goes on the list. Personally, I hate repetitive tasks. So throughout my career, whenever I had to do something that I had to do it more than 3 times, I started to think about, how can I automate this? How can I simplify this in some way so that I don't lose my mind? doing this work. And I once had this position as a data analyst a while back, and a lot of the work was very tedious. A lot of spreadsheets, a lot of, just creating charts and graphs and running basic analytics and things like that. And I kind of started to get tired of doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Job was great, the pay was great, but I needed to make it better some way. So I created a macro that actually turned a 3-hour task into a 30-minute task. And I remember one day I turned my work in so fast that my manager reached back out to me immediately and asked me to run a training session for everyone else on the team. She was like, wait a second, what did you just do? We need everybody on the team doing that. So in my log, I wrote down successfully automated the labeling and the data set. I reduced data entry time from hours to minutes. And because this was a market research company that ran studies constantly for companies like Walmart and Target, with a whole team of data analysts doing the same tedious work that I was doing, I was actually able to save them and the company about the equivalent of 40 hours a week with this one small process improvement. That's a really great value add that I could put up in front of my manager to show them I was not just processing data. I'm not just someone who's here crunching numbers. I'm saving your company time and money. But most people assume that if they work hard, their work is going to speak for itself. But work doesn't speak. People speak. And if you're not tracking your wins, your manager might not be either. So I really want to hammer this in when it's time for the performance review or when new opportunities come up. If you're not tracking it, they're not thinking about you because your work isn't top of mind for them. So write it down. Even if you think it's small, write it down because it could connect the dots in your story later. Even if you think it's too good to forget, like, I would never forget this. This is amazing. Write that down too. I can't tell you how many times I forget the details of what I did because I didn't care enough about myself, my future self. I didn't care enough to leave a breadcrumb trail or to even stop for a minute and say, wow, I did a good thing today. Let me write that down. Y'all, there are 52 weeks in the year. Imagine going into your next review with a bulleted list of 52 ways that you brought value. That's really powerful and compelling. So, another example. I had one direct report who was so good at this. She made it so easy for me to just copy and paste everything into her performance review. And the list that she would pull together for me made it easy for me to talk her up when she applied for a higher level position that she got, by the way. And it made it easy for me to remember all the little and big ways that she contributed. Remember that managers are people too, and they don't always see everything that you're working on. They have to keep track of everyone's wins. So just make it as easy as you can for them. And if you want a full breakdown of how to use documentation and metrics to accelerate your career, I actually created a guide that you can grab at leadwithlevity.com/podcast. So here are my final thoughts for today. I want to take a moment and just recognize that you are different. There is something very, very, very special about you. That you are here today listening to this message, working on yourself. Working to be better for future you and for the people on your team. So from here on, let's make a pact. Let's promise to never again walk into a performance review empty-handed. Let's promise to never again rely on memory. And let's promise to never again let our hard work go unnoticed. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lead with Levity podcast. To get resources mentioned in this episode and find out what we're all about, check us out at leadwithlevity.com.